Forktales, a podcast that feeds ideas to the food and beverage world. Forktales is brought to you by Vigor, a branding and advertising agency focused on the restaurant and hospitality industry, and by Quench, a food and beverage advertising agency that specializes in evolving iconic food and beverage brands. Learn more, visit vigorbranding.com and quenchagency.com. If you love what we're serving up, please give Forktales a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. Think of it as a tip for good service.
Hi, and welcome to Forktales. Today, we're talking to a good buddy of mine, hospitality powerhouse, who helped reshape the dining scene in Tulsa and beyond. He's the founder and CEO of McNellie's Group, which includes 17 brands across 20 locations in 4 cities, which is absolutely amazing. He's a builder, a visionary, and could be the future mayor. We'll talk about that later, of Tulsa. Elliot, welcome to Forktales, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So we're going to talk. We do Forktales because, we have an agency called Vigor that does restaurants, and we have a agency that's called Quench that does food and beverage CPG. So it's all things food and beverage, and that's what we're going to talk about. But I was always blown away. I got to meet you many years ago. I was blown away by what you did for the city of Tulsa. And that to me is, I think it kind of sums up a lot of things that we're going to talk about, but I just think that's really super cool. So, again, I get a lot of people in here that are restaurant guys, and, that's what they do. And, they're all about the restaurant business, which is great. It's super cool. But
yeah, they've probably made a lot more money than I have.
I was going to say, your vision and attitude is quite different. So just start from the beginning. Talk about like your background, where you come from, and how this whole restaurant thing became in your blood, I guess, not just in your blood.
Sure. Yeah. So, born and raised Tulsa, Oklahoma. Grew up around a small business, family-owned business, and so I went off school. I was an English major. Thought I was going to be an attorney, and then worked at a law firm and a legal aid clinic the summer before my senior year of college, just to kind of build my resume to apply to law school. And after spending a summer there, I was like, man, there's no fucking way I can do this in my life. I was an English major that barely read a book. I didn't know I was going to spend a career reading stuff. So I took an entrepreneurship class, and the first day of class, the guy said, hey, write down your favorite things in life. Your 5 favorite things. Mine are like beer, food, travel. I said, okay, your project this semester, all you're doing is you're going to write a business plan figuring out how you make money doing one of the 5 things on your list. And my junior year, I'd done an exchange in Dublin, and loved
Nice.
Irish pubs, loved Irish culture, and loved Guinness. And so I started writing a business plan for McNellie's Pub, a fictional pub set in my hometown. And then I came home that fall break and was working on it, just trying to get a good grade. And then I came home again that Christmas. I was like, you know what? Like, I think this might work. Like the restaurant and bar scene's really bad here. And at that point, I knew enough to know that craft beer was kind of happening, and no one had capitalized on that here. No one had tried to own that market. And so, my premise was, well, if I open an Irish pub and I can be the first to really own craft beer, that I think that craft beer will insulate us, right, and give us at least a foothold to build a business. So we I moved back. I really got home probably fall of 2001. And started working on it. And one of my things was I wanted to be in an old building, right? Just the character of an old building was important to me, and how a place felt. And so, that put me in downtown Tulsa, right? So I went through 4 different buildings. Ultimately, we found a building that was built in 1915. It was originally a fruit and grain warehouse. It backs up to the train tracks. So, all these products used to come off the tracks and then through the building and sold out the front. But it had been vacant for 40 years, 3 feet of water in the basement, mold everywhere. And so, it was maybe a 1.5-year construction project, something like that, get this thing put back together. So we opened, March of 04, and I had no idea what I was doing, right? I got in a job waiting tables for 9 months. That was my, I better figure out how a restaurant works experiment. And but we opened it, and the beer thing kind of held, right? That was true. We instantly became kind of the destination in town for beer. Ultimately we got named one of the 100 best places in the world to drink beer, right? I mean, we really own that, and so that gave us enough of a business to make it. Really, I mean, but those first couple of years were rough. We were downtown on an island, right? Downtown Tulsa was really a ghost town at that point. There was a daytime population of 40,000 people. So we still have Fortune 500 companies down here that are busy during the day, but everybody left at night. And so our goal is to transform that neighborhood. And then fast forward, right, 21 years later, we have 10 restaurants within about 6 blocks of each other down here. We built 2 different apartment buildings, built a new office tower. We've done all kinds of stuff. Just more than anything, just trying to make our hometown a better place to live. And of course, as we got better at restaurants, that was our vehicle in the beginning. We've now expanded some of those brands, built stuff in other parts of the city. So I think we just opened our 27th unit 2 weeks ago. 2 months ago. Sorry.
Wow.
So
fantastic. Yeah. Well, now, so McNellie's, I'm not a real bright guy, but I'm assuming that you took your name and put it together and created that fictitious name. Yeah. Elliot Nelson and McNellie's. Yeah. I got it.
So when your name's Elliot and you grew up in the 80s, everything's an ET joke, right? I mean, it's like everything's flown home all the time. And so the Irish side of my family is actually named Quigley. And I was like, man, and right when we were doing that, like Quigley Down Under had come out, that bad Tom Selleck Australian boy movie. And and I was like, man, if I name this Quigley's, everything's going to be a Quigley Down Under joke, and I don't think I can handle that. But it's funny, we just opened a pub about a year and a half ago. It's great. I believe it's the best Irish pub not on the Eastern Seaboard in the United States. It's fantastic. It's called Bishop Quigley, and there's
there you go.
back in my Irish side of my family, there was a bishop somewhere in like the 17th century. So I finally felt okay naming it Quigley and getting away from the Tom Selleck movie. But
that is fantastic, and I love like in your whole story. I mean, you went to an area of the city that was obviously less than optimum, in a city that didn't have a whole, to your words, I think, didn't have a whole lot going on in the, I'll say, bar restaurant scene, right? And then, of course, and again, I get all these like master restaurant tours on the show, and you do like a bunch of different concepts all within blocks of each other, which is like the absolute wrong thing to do, right?
That's right. That's, like I said, all those other people make a bunch of money. I just I do cool shit. But it's the worst way to do it if you want to make a profit. Yeah.
Well, and the one thing too and again, we'll get into the whole what you've done to the city, but you've always said that you wanted like McNellie's to be like the Tulsa's downtown living room. Like you wanted that to be the place. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so my original business plan, which I think, a lot of people laughed at, right? But my premise was, a really good pub in Ireland. One of the busiest times of the whole week is Sunday after Mass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see multiple generations in there, right? And people will come in for, throughout the week, for celebrations, to mourn, to just, continue a work day. And so to me, like, when you do, back then the business plan coaching was, what's your target demographic? And mine was like everybody, right? Like I want this to be a place where, if you like beer, you can come enjoy beer, but with your kid because they can get some food, right? Or it's also, if you're a 30 or 40-year-old, it's a place where you can bring your 75 or 80-year-old parent because the music isn't loud and it's a pub and it's friendly. And so that was, to me, very important, that it was a place that was welcoming to people of kind of all generations. And so that, what I remember early on, maybe like the first month we were open, I saw a family of about 15 people that was grandparents all the way down to little kids. And I was like, okay, I think maybe we've done it, right? And, I always joked, Starbucks has that thing that they talk about the third place, right? It's home and work. And I always think a really good pub is the second place, right? Generally speaking, if your pub's really great, you like it better than home or work, right? So third place is too far down the line. You got to be a second place.
That's awesome. And on that, like I remember years back, I was in London and I was with my family, and it was actually the coolest thing ever because for Father's Day, we happened to be there on Father's Day, which I assumed everyone just would forget. I'd be buying everyone breakfast anyway and whatever, typical day. But they didn't. They got me a Father's Day gift, which was a historic pub crawl in London. And as much and excited as I was to have some different pints, I started learning the history. And the thing that, and it's probably obvious, but it was shocking to me is, you go up to these old pubs and you look at it, it's like, okay, that thing is super old. But next to it is a building that was only built like 50 years ago, or maybe 75 years ago. And so these old pubs were surrounded by new construction. Well, I guess during the war, the fires, all that stuff. I mean, the buildings were ruined, but people went out and saved the public houses.
Right.
You know, I got to take care of more than my family. I got to take care of the community, the public house.
Right.
And so that just blew my mind, which is actually really super cool, you know, for a guy who does appreciate a good bar or pub. So I think that is awesome. And I get the whole second location thing
right.
for sure. So, but so how did you found that how did you select the first location? Was it obvious? The building wasn't in the family or anything like that?
No.
Was it?
So I'll tell you the premise at that point. So you had 40,000 daytime employees in downtown Tulsa, and the closest place that they would have gone to have happy hour that wasn't like a dive bar. Like if you were a professional, the
Right.
closest place you would have gone for happy hour was 3 miles away. And that to me was just like bizarre, right? I mean, I spent a lot of time in New York, Chicago, and these bigger, denser cities. You know, I
Sure.
was when I left home for school, I always thought I was going to live in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once I came up with this pub idea that I decided to move home. But there you're in those bars after work, and it's full of people in suits and ties, right? And it's like, I thought it was weird that we didn't have a place like that. And so, at that point in time, there's what's called the Williams Tower, which is a half replica of the wall of the World Trade Center, which is interesting. Like originally, there were supposed to be two towers in New York, half size in Tulsa, and then quarter size in LA, right? And when we were building our twin towers, the oil crash in the early '80s happened, and so only one of the two got built.
Gotcha.
And but it's the tallest building between Chicago and Dallas at that point, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you look at it, it's full, but these people have nowhere to continue their day. And so for me, that location being downtown, one was about an old building, but
Mm-hmm.
the other was about being close in proximity to where all those people who were working could go and have a pint and continue their day with their work friends without having to get in their car, right? And so if you step out the front door of McNellie's and you look right, 600 feet away is a 800-foot tall building, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's crazy to me that there were no services really around.
Sure.
Right? So that was a big part of the bet. It was like, man, I think there are enough people here that will want to come for happy hour that we can make this work.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think we have in common is taking an old building, something that's, I won't say godforsaken. I haven't been to your pub, but I mean, I think there's a lot of work that had to go into it. We are in an area where I started my company in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is middle of Pennsylvania, and there was the original bank in town was the Market Street Trust Company, really creative name on Market Street, and we were the first branch of the Market Street Trust Company. So it's like a 1912 bank building with a vault and like all kinds of marble, and it sat here, and it does flood when the river gets too high, which is once a year. But I was able to, when I just started out with no money, was able to buy this building because no one wanted it. So I kind of funked it up and made it cool. And
Right.
we're sitting in an area that actually, this would make a phenomenal pub, by the way. So
Yeah.
if you want to get adventurous
All
come to
right,
Pennsylvania,
yeah.
I'll go in business with it because I've got the building, and I actually have parking, which no one actually has around here. But anyway, I digress. But our whole area back here really, and I mean this, when I talked to you years ago, I was really inspired. I thought, man, I should do this. I should try to do this in Harrisburg because we have this whole corridor here that's just been left go. And it's sad. You see that in a lot of the cities, other than the major metropolitan areas. You see a lot of that sort of decline, and then COVID now obviously exacerbated it, right? So it's just it's a tough thing.
Yeah,
But
COVID, in terms of our business, our business now, we're last year was slightly up over 2019, right? It took several years to recover.
Yep.
But the split on sales in terms of, our lunches are still down 30% from COVID, right? Like
Yeah.
the downtown workforce has changed, right?
Yeah.
Especially, Friday was always far and away our busiest lunch.
Yeah.
And now you can walk in at noon on Friday and get a table because so many people work from home on Friday now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So now Thursday's our busiest lunch.
Right.
But yeah, it's really changed a lot. But it's funny, these old buildings and these downtowns. I mean, you've seen it happen a lot of places, right? I'm sure Harrisburg's no different. I think it's probably a town fairly similar to here. But there's it gets in you. It's a passion, right? I mean, I think I've now done 30 historic renovation projects. I love old buildings, right? It's fun, and it's funny too. Like once you kind of develop a ability to do it, that gets easier. But because I think most people they do one and it's so frustrating they never want to do it again. But after you've done 5 or 6, you're like, okay, I think I got to understand this now, right? You just got to kind of roll with it, right? Just don't have too stringent of a plan. But we just we just finished this building. I'll send you a link to it. But it's called 36 Degrees North, our an entrepreneurship incubator here. And we
Mm-hmm.
just took a 1910 warehouse,
Wow.
110,000 square feet, $40 million project. It's incredible.
Wow.
But we did it all with the short cash credits. And
Sure.
yeah, it's, but that we continue, we're almost running out of old buildings now to do, but we're starting another one right now that was a porn theater for the last 45 years. So we're finally wrestled that one away. We're going to redo that, but
now, are you going to rent that, or are you going to turn that into another concept restaurant?
I think we're largely done with, so I just finished a big mixed use project directly across the street from McNellie. So I don't know if you can see right there off my shoulder is a watercolor. It was done in August of 2004 of the 2 blocks across from McNellie's. So when we opened the pub, there were just a two city block parking lot right across the street. And I was looking at it, I was like, man, this has got to be something better, right? And so one of my friends who's a valedictorian of our architecture class at Notre Dame, he's from Tulsa as well. And I
Cool.
said, hey, man, come down here. I want to show you this, right? He was working at London at the time at this crazy firm. So he was in town. I showed it to him, and he drew that for me and did it all out of watercolor and sent it to me. And I worked on it for 20 years. We just finished
Good for
it.
you.
It's it's 160,000 square feet office building, 184 apartments, and this
Wow.
big public plaza, like hardscape, like European plaza. Anyway, we're going to build an Italian restaurant there.
Nice.
And that I think will be probably my, I'd say, I don't want to say never, but that to me is kind of the final piece of our downtown
Mm-hmm.
project for me, in terms of the neighborhood and what we build. So we'll build that restaurant. I think, from then on, we're probably looking elsewhere to build restaurants. So the porn theater used to be a hotel above it.
I wonder why.
It was built like 1911. It was built in 1911 as like a boarding house, right? Because this area used to be all railroad and brothels and boarding houses, and so I think we're actually going to turn it into a little boarding house hotel.
Nice.
So, and then if we have anything there, we're talking about like a little dive bar downstairs called Smut. It's just kind of a tribute to the porn theater.
I love it.
Yeah, right.
Hey, listen, and I mean this. If you do Smut, I will do the branding and design for free.
Okay.
I would love to. Seriously, I would love to have fun. There's a guy in town doing a bar now called High Dive.
Yeah,
and he's trying to. He wants to do like a high end dive bar, which I love stuff like that. So
right,
I want to help him too. So
the idea at this point is we're going to decoupage all the walls and like old Playboys. But
I love it. You could call it Tulsa Entertainment Complex, where with your boarding house, and people ask why is it called that? Well, it was a brothel and hotel. Mm-hmm. So you could do something fun. You could actually charge people by the hour to sleep there.
Right?
It's like you're going to spend the night. You know what I mean? That'd be kind of fun.
There's a business there.
Yeah, I think it's just hilarious, and I think people will get it. So I got to ask you a question, because I think I know the answer to this, but I don't know if I do. Where do you get your most energy? From the restaurant side or from the development side?
Man, it kind of depends, right? A lot of it's the development side, right? I mean, at some point, I'll probably consider myself a restaurant developer, more than it's my top ops guys don't want me involved, right? So, and I do, but I get a lot of energy from the just hospitality side of it too. So like if I'm having a really rough time at work, which, happens time to time, right? When you're an entrepreneur, all the time, but I'll go into the stores and just do table touches and talk to people. I mean, I still get a lot of energy from, the fact that we have created these places that are the, backdrops for people's lives, right? I mean, this is where their memories are created, where they celebrate things. And that to me is still something that I really cherish and get a lot of energy from. But, it's designing them and making sure we're hitting it right and hitting the concept right and all this, which I think dovetails more probably in with the development side of things than the ops side of things. But it's, it's day to day which one I get more energy from. The real estate stuff can beat you up too.
Oh, no doubt. It's I'm sitting here again, maybe the entrepreneur me can't help to think about it. We all know guys that have built, say, a restaurant brand, and then they scale it to 25 and then 200 and go, right? Or we know big franchise guys that'll have like 6 or 7 different types of franchise restaurants, right? The master franchisees. you have this sort of crazy cool niche where you could actually like go and be whatever consultant or the developer or the investor, whatever you'd want to be. But you could go into all these cities because there's a Tulsa in every state. There's multiple Tulsas in every state,
Right.
you know. And I think um, for all the reasons you did it to save the old buildings, to save the fabric of the city, I think is just a really well, it's a great business model, but it's a really noble business model. I think there's something very cool about that.
Yeah, no, it's more to me, So I did about 10 years ago. Went through a program. I really worked on um, like some purpose work, right? Like
Hmm.
what is my purpose? Like what am I
Yeah,
actually doing, right? And through a year of a course and like working on it a lot, thinking about it a lot, I think I ultimately arrived at like, I feel like my purpose is to make my hometown a better place to live. I just think that's
hmm,
what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And that clarity really helps, I think give direction and meaning to some of these things that I do that, aren't as profitable as building 200 of one single concept, right? I mean, like,
sure,
but see, mentally for me, it's, figuring out, like, okay, what am I, how does this, whatever we're going to build, how does that tie into what I actually think what I should be spending my time on?
hmm,
And yeah, so like these other towns, we get approached a lot, and and we look at it too. I mean, we always give it an honest look, and we haven't quite found the right opportunity yet to go do what we do in another town. We've kind of done it in Oklahoma City. We have three things in one neighborhood. We're about to open two more there. And that was
hmm,
a rundown part of town when we started too. Um, but it's building restaurants where we think they really make an impact, right? I mean, like, a pub in the right neighborhood can really, really changes things. I mean, and
sure,
it sounds, maybe a little bit like I'm overstating the importance of it, which I probably am. But I believe in that, right? I believe
yeah,
when a neighborhood really has a place to gather, that it means something, right? It
yeah.
improves people's lives, and it's so I think we always kind of look at that too, and maybe it's Harrisburg next, maybe it's that bank building, and
There you
maybe
go.
maybe there's some people there who just need a place to hang out.
I think they do. And like what you're saying, I mean, really, it does track because again, we have the one agency Vigor that does restaurants, the other Quench that does food and beverage, and whether we're talking about a CPG manufacturer of pork or I'm talking about a restaurant concept, everyone says the same thing. It's about bringing people together. It's about experiences. It's about comfort, relaxation, whether it's around a family dinner table or out to a restaurant. So it really is about that. So I don't think you're overestimating the value of a good pub. I mean, it can make the neighborhood.
Right.
It really, I mean, and from firsthand experience, my wife is Greek, and I know this is a stereotype, but Greeks have restaurants, and my family has restaurants, and they had done the same things here in Harrisburg back in the beginning, and back in other towns too. Put up a local bar restaurant, and higher end dining, and two or three concepts in one town, and so it changes things. And then for a while there's this restaurant revolution here in Harrisburg, and that was probably in the 90s, and then that's since subsided. And then the COVID thing smacked us, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, you were brilliant to put a pub right by the biggest office building in town, but then when COVID happens, there's people are working from home. So has it come back in Tulsa at all? I mean, I know your
Yeah.
Fridays aren't as big, but I mean, are you still
I mean,
struggling with that?
yeah, I mean, the daytime population has never bounced, right? It's still, I mean, I think we're back up. Last I saw our peak days down here about 20,000 now. It used to be
Mm-hmm.
almost 40,000. So, yeah, I mean, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The original pub, there was always this empty lot next door to us.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of 2019, I got a call. The guy who'd always owned it was being put into assisted living, and his kids wanted to sell it. So I bought it. And then we started designing it for a courtyard for the pub. And when COVID happened, we learned we were going to get shut down. I had decided I wanted these big mature trees, right? So we ordered these trees. They were coming up from Texas. The trees were like it was like 20 grand for the two trees. One of them was 30 years old. The other one was 18 years old. I mean, they're big live oak trees. And and the but the it was like 55 grand to ship them, right? It was like and so I called a guy like 3 days before I knew the shutdown was coming. I was like, hey man, I can't take those trees anymore. Like I don't know if I got a business anymore. we just dug them up. They're yours. So, but so anyway, I had to borrow the money from my dad to pay for the trees because we went insolvent quick, right? It took about
Uh-huh.
6 weeks for us to be insolvent. And, uh, but anyway, so, the trees come and they get planted. And then it turned out, by that fall, I was like, oh, wow, this outdoor space is like the most valuable
Mhm.
thing we could possibly have now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in many ways, the pub, like, yeah, it didn't bounce back from our normal course of business, but the fact that we then picked up this incredible outdoor space, which is one of not the best outdoor dining spaces in town because of these trees, has really been a kind of saving grace for us. You know, what I mean, that outdoor space, and it's a lot of seats, but I think last year was probably up 20% from 2019, something like that. But a lot of it has to
Mhm.
do with just how good our outdoor space is. So we
Yeah.
we got lucky on that one because the normal course of downtown, like we have a diner, right? It's, heavy breakfast and lunch during the week and business meetings and stuff. It still hasn't bounced back, right? And so there's some of them that are less fortunate than others, and so we still have a ton of concerts and ball games and all kinds of stuff downtown that the other restaurants feed off of that has kind of buoyed them a little bit. But the ones who are very dependent on just downtown worker people, that's
Mhm.
still a challenge.
Sure. Well, I think in a previous thing you mentioned that downtown Tulsa had about 10 eateries when you started,
Yeah,
and now there's like 150. I
yeah,
mean,
that's
you
right.
obviously had a huge role in
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Why that growth? Was it people said, "Hey, look, this guy's got a pub, and people are going there to
yeah,
eat and drink." I
yeah.
mean,
So we used to track it. 2004 when we opened, that we were like the 11th or 12th place you could get a drink or buy the food down here, and they were most of them. There were a couple other ones that were similar price points to us that opened around the same time, but everything else was like a daytime like deli or a dive bar like the old VFW bar or something. So
mhm.
um, so when we opened '04, from '04 to 2011 we opened 7 places, and when we opened our seventh place, I think it was up to maybe like 26 or 28 places downtown. I mean, we were about a quarter of it, but even then, we were a much larger portion of the footage because our places were all pretty big. Um, and but in that time, the city opened a new arena, $300 million project
Mhm.
at that time, which today is probably $1 billion project. And then they also they opened a new minor league baseball stadium a block from McNellie's. And the mayor at the
Yes.
time said, "Hey, you were the person who created a lot of this momentum, so I'm going to put this stadium as close to you as I can get it." And that so once those two big public investments happened, then everything else kind of took off, right?
Yeah.
So um, and the market just kept growing. And our sales, despite all those things being added, up until COVID, I mean, our sales increased every year. I mean, because not
Mhm.
only was more restaurants and bars opening, but we were building apartments and retail and all this other stuff. And a couple of new museums got built down here. So there was a lot of activity that drove
Mhm.
people downtown. If COVID kind of stopped it dead in its tracks, and I think we're just now getting to the point where we're kind of recreating it. Trying to get the momentum back. But it's you know we're now 10 of 150 or whatever. But in terms of volume, I guess we're probably still a pretty significant piece of the volume. But
Yeah. It's just amazing too. And, it's like, and I hate to say it's reassuring, but to hear you say you're just bouncing back from COVID, I'll say from my perspective, we own advertising agencies
yeah,
and we're in Atlanta, Philadelphia, New York and Harrisburg here. And, it's like to this day now, it's like people don't want to come into the office and, it's like, it's what we do. And I felt like I watched my company because all I have is people. I mean,
right.
that's all I have. I mean, my assets go out the door every day at 5 o'clock. Now, half the time they don't come in the door. So it's like, it's one of those things where I felt like the company is slipping through my fingers. And I do feel like it's sort of the energy's coming back and maybe the whole desire to be together is coming back. But it took a lot longer than
Yeah,
I thought, and
yeah,
it's tough. So
yeah. It's really tough.
I'm glad to hear it's moving for you guys. And,
Yeah, and I'll tell you that one of the long tails I think we're going to see. The you look at the drinking habits of young people, especially those who were call it high school and college when the pandemic happened. They
mhm,
just don't go out at the same rate, and that man, it's going to really change our industry. I think legalized marijuana, I think, is having a huge
mhm,
effect,
mhm,
but also I think there's just been a bunch of changed consumer habits that are really, really strange. I mean, we're seeing like last year, our food sales compared to 2019 were up. well, it was something really robust, 15 or 20%, something like that.
Hmm.
But our alcohol sales were down like 10 or 15% from 2019. I mean, they
Wow.
still haven't bounced back. And so, that change in consumer habits is really going to mess with the model in restaurants, especially as all the commodity prices spike and you're losing margin on your food.
Yep.
That. So in some ways, yeah, we've rebounded on a gross volume perspective, but the product mix is so different within that volume now that
Hmm.
the profitability is way, way down. And
Yeah, the
that's the
profit is
thing that
real.
concerns
Yeah.
me long term, is our profitability has effectively been cut in half from where it was pre-pandemic. And I'm not sure how we ever get that back,
Yeah.
is that going to lead to, a lot of closures and other things? Like maybe,
Hmm.
you see a lot of this growth now happening in places that have tons of private equity money and other things where they're chasing units and top line volume more than they're chasing profitability. But at
Right.
some point, that's got to
Catch up.
wash out, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
don't, it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I say we've caught up, but it's different, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, I just actually just did a podcast recently with a guy who's doing THC infused beverages, right? And I think he is on to something pretty spectacular because he's targeting more of a female drinker. And like we know that like from I'll say from the quench side of things, like the RTBs and the seltzers, and that definitely skews more female. And then there's no hangover, the calories and all that. You still get a little bit of a whatever you want to call buzz or whatever from the
Right.
THC. And now they're really trying to dial it in so that it's sort of like similar to alcohol. Like if I drink 5 beers, if I have 5 Guinnesses in one night, it's got to be over a 3-hour period because, drinking and driving and
Sure.
just maintaining control, that stuff. So they're starting to really figure that out. So that might be your next thing, maybe, because you're right. I think a lot of the younger generation is more willing to do that,
Yeah.
quote unquote California sober
Right.
thing and all that. So,
Yeah. We've
you know,
looked at it. I'm not sure. Obviously we're always tracking this stuff. I'm just not sure how it's going to translate to on premise, right? Because so much of it's been tailored towards an off premise consumption at this
mm-hmm,
point.
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how that goes. I heard a new one last week. You said California sober. Maybe it was a couple weeks ago, but I'm using that Milwaukee sober. I just I'm
Just drink beer.
just drinking beer.
That's awesome. I will use that. I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good.
So I can't remember who said it, like, no, no, Milwaukee sober. I don't know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, so you're working on something called the Santa Fe Square.
Yeah,
Okay, and is that what we're talking about? The thing behind you, the dream, or
yeah.
Can you want to talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
so that started. I started trying to work on it in really. I mean, I had that drawing done in 2004. Really started trying to work on it in 2007, and then all the market crash and everything in '08 and '09 kind of killed it when I was started like I was really getting some traction. So then sat on it for a while, and then in 2014, I heard some people were coming in trying to buy that piece of land,
Mm-hmm.
and so at that point, I was like, man, I had one of my real estate kind of mentors say, hey, man, if somebody else does that, you're gonna drive by it for the rest of your life, and think, man, I should have done it. So I got back in the mix, put together a team of partners to do it. We bought the dirt in 2016. We're moving forward pretty good, we thought, and then COVID happened, and then 2021 we had somebody approach us about wanting to be a lead tenant in the office, and so that kind of
Mm-hmm.
kicked it off. And so we kicked off 2021. We built a 12-story office building with 700 space parking garage attached to it. That is completely full now. It's actually, we had at least right around the time we finished it. We finished it in February 23, and now, but it took a while to move everybody in. But that's full. And then we just at the same, shortly thereafter, we started building the apartments and retail next to it. So 184 apartments with 30,000 square feet of retail space. We're going to have a restaurant that opens up onto this plaza with this we're going to do white tablecloth, al fresco dining, which I'm really excited
That's
about.
awesome.
This big public plaza. And so, it's all in. We had a Hotel Indigo that went in, one small
Nice.
historic building we redid. All in, it was about $180 million project. And, it took years of my life. It's interesting, like, even that one, I'm not going to make that much money on it. But it's kind of cool, right? I mean, we got it built, and it's very much now an anchor and kind of the centerpiece of all the stuff I've been working on for 20 years. I mean, we have, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have like 7 restaurants that are effectively adjacent to that site, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that ring it, and And so creating that and creating a kind of sense of permanence in this neighborhood is just crazy. And, I was talking to somebody about it this morning. Actually, I hadn't seen it in a long time. The guy that used to do like small construction stuff for us. He's like, man, he's like, it's nuts. He's like, people see it and they're like, how did he go from pub to building that in such a short time period? I'm like, short time period. I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
man. I have a kid. I had a kid that was born who was now in college in that time. So that was a short time span. But
And how many sleepless nights is that in
yeah,
that
yeah,
short time
right. It
period?
was like,
Yeah.
my blood pressure went up,
Yeah.
50% that time. So yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see if we do another big project like that. I don't know that we will,
Hmm.
but I certainly know how to do it now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to. Miles, you and I know each other from YPO, and I'm doing that YPO uh, retail deal or not real estate deal at Harvard in a couple of weeks, which I'm
Nice.
really excited about because in my head I'm like, okay, I just built this, right, and not a lot of people build stuff like that and get it off the ground and finished.
Hmm.
And I was like, but I didn't make any money, so I need to go like learn from some people who are really good at this. I'm like, how do I do it next time and actually
Yeah.
like make
Yeah.
some profit from
Yeah.
it?
I say, what are the chances of you going to that class and saying, you know what, though, that was my last project. I'm not doing anymore. There's no
Yeah,
chance.
well,
There's no
so
chance.
yeah, there's no chance. I mean,
Hey,
at
I
this
love.
point, similar to the restaurants, right? Like a couple years into running the pub, I'm like, man, I don't like running a restaurant, right? But then I was like, but I'm really good at like creating a restaurant. So I was like, well, I know how to do it. I should keep doing it. I think the real estate will be similar.
Yeah.
We're really good at doing historic renovations. We've done a ton of them now,
Yeah.
and now we know how to do this. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess I should,
Yeah. I
take
think
the
there's. Yeah, I
hard
keep.
lessons and apply them to something.
Yeah, I keep going back to whether you invest your own money or not, you could put together these investment groups in these
Yeah.
cities and just do this in other places because
Yeah.
it truly is a value. I mean, not just to the business owners, but it's so important to the culture of the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I travel a ton and I see this town, your town. I see it everywhere. And it would be so great for just people,
Yeah.
and that kind of brings me back to something else that I read. So I'm jumping around here a little bit, but
Yeah. Well, I am too. I'm a disaster
yeah,
this morning.
no,
I haven't
no, I
had no
love it. I love
coffee
it.
yet.
Yeah, this is great. This is what it's all about. Just kind of like vibing off what everyone's saying. But you and I had another thing that was interestingly in common. Okay, you started off in your knowledge base of restaurants. You started waiting tables for like 6 months somewhere, and talk about that experience because I had a similar situation where I was this creative knucklehead, and I ended up coming back to a town. I ended up working at this agency, and I was like, I was doing cool work. So I'm like, yeah, the guy's kind of a jerk, and he doesn't treat people very well.
Right.
And I'm like, I know I've got a marketable skill, and I'm going to treat people nicely, and that's going to be my business model. And that was it.
Yeah.
So talk about your story there.
Actually, I'm not too dissimilar, right? So I get this job, so I moved back from college. I was living in my parents' garage apartment, um, which was a short-lived experience. My mother did not like it when I had a female visitor, late at night. So the but there's a restaurant, maybe 7-8 blocks from my parents' house. So I went in there. First application I put in, I was like, I already had this business plan, and I was raising capital, meet with banks, but I had no idea how a restaurant works, right? So it's like I got to go, like, get eyes on this, right? So they hired me, but yeah, I learned like how not to treat people, right? And this is
Mm-hmm.
something my dad. So my family was in the car business growing up, so we had a Ford dealership, and we had, I don't know, 90 to 100 employees, something like that. But my dad, like, I remember growing up, and and I worked there too as a teenager, and but my dad knew every single person and knew,
Mm-hmm.
not only knew their name, but knew what was going on with their lives, knew their kids' names, what was going on with the kid, like, how was Johnny's football game last night? I mean, just and people loved working for him, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of had that firsthand experience, and so I get this job in this restaurant. Man, they treat people like shit, and they don't treat them like adults, and they don't really
Mm-hmm.
care about And you see that, and you're like, man, I think you can do this better, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I actually, the chef, the guy who was the kind of sous chef of that restaurant was my first kitchen guy, and I hired him, and I said, look, and he didn't like the people that worked for either, so that made it easier, but I hired him. I said, just give me a really good hamburger. I don't care what the rest, like whatever the rest menu is, whatever. Just make sure the hamburger's good, right? He ended up being great. He just retired actually. That was probably a year and a half ago, Pete.
Wow.
But yeah, he actually stepped down after running the kitchen after a couple of years. He's like, man, I just want to do prep work and stuff. This is too much. But all that stuff that I kind of saw firsthand, I mean, that became a core philosophy for what we do, right? How we treat people. I mean, you know, the we still try to be a company that is employee first, right?
Hmm.
And my philosophy is if we treat our employees really well and they feel loved and cared for, they will in turn pass that on to our guests, right?
Sure.
And so we still try to put employee first, treat our people great, try to have best in class benefits, especially within the city. I mean, healthcare and 401k and all this
Yep.
stuff. And we have we just started offering mental health services
Yep.
a couple of years ago. We also have just this like email. It's anonymous. You can send aid@mcnellies.com. You can send an email too if you're in trouble and need help. I mean,
Hmm.
we'll try to help you, right? And we just had somebody who was in a bad domestic situation be like, man, I need to get out of this, but I can't afford a deposit on an apartment. We're like, yeah, we'll help you, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
and we don't ask questions, but it's not a loan. We're not looking at anything back. It's just you realize in this
Hmm.
industry that a lot of times you might be the most stable force in somebody's life, and it's a responsibility I take to heart and say, we need to provide for these people because they come in and work really hard every day, and I think we have an obligation to then be there for them when they need something. And again, it gets back to this like, okay, that's a drag on long term profitability, and it's maybe like, but simply like, why am I here? Right? Am I
Right.
here on this earth
Right.
to just like
Right.
see how much money I can make and buy a big boat. Like, oh, it doesn't
Hmm.
fucking mean anything to me. So if
Yeah.
I can improve some of these people's lives and make their life a little less stressful, then we try to do that. And it's just that reward to me far outweighs any kind of monetary reward.
Yeah, we have a very similar perspective. I mean, we do a thing here called People First.
Yeah.
We do all the benefit things you're talking about, mental health, the whole thing, and it's kind of funny, and it was a realization for me. I mean, I like people, I love being around people. The COVID thing bothered me most, not because I'll say people weren't coming into the office and working. I missed people. I missed all the people that I used to spend my days with. And one of the things I did recently, just to get a grip on things, is we did this thing called Three Things, and it wasn't my idea. It was something I stole from the guy that created NVIDIA. He has like 10,000 employees. He does 5 things. What are the 5 things that are on your mind? I want to know. And he asks for it every week now. So I do 3 things. 3 things that are on your mind every week. And I know my folks that work with me probably hate it because, oh shit, he wants to stupid 3 things. I just want 3 bullet points, but it's awesome. I get to learn about people's kids. I
Right.
get to learn about a baseball game that their son's pitching in, but then I learn about like, well, I'm working on this project and I'm having trouble with this, or it's been phenomenal, or there's a client that's this, or so I learn so much, and I love it. And the deal was like, look, I'm not going to promise I'm going to answer everyone, but I'll promise I'll read everyone. And so far, after it's been like, I think 5 or 6 weeks now, and probably like, a good 600 emails, which I've answered every one. And
Right.
it takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about what to do on a Saturday or Sunday morning anymore. So
Right.
it's basically booked. But to the point of the people thing, right? It's
Yeah.
huge. And so I talk about, like, I know how, because I've heard you talk about it, I know how important the people thing is for you, as much as the restaurants, as much as the building, it's your employees. Can you share a success story of someone who rose like through the ranks? Like, I mean, I know you said
Oh
you're
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
continuing to build restaurants because
yeah.
there's so many people out there that you want to work with.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot over the years, right? I mean, people that have started as dishwashers and become general managers. I mean, one of my favorite ones lately is a young woman who started with us as a hostess, a lunch hostess, and she has risen up. Became a multi-unit manager. Um, we gave her stock. She is now a partner and owner. But about 6 months ago, we promoted her to vice president. So she's our first female vice president. Although I say that we only have 3 other vice presidents, right? So it's not like we had a bunch, but that to me is just like her story and how great she is incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think she'll continue to probably get further stock grants and more ownership, and so those kind of things make it more rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And so we have lots of those stories. Our management ranks are largely filled with people who've come up through the ranks with us, and so it's just really fun to see. And I know we've now started a manager and training program where we let people opt into it themselves, and And those are the stories we tell people. Like, hey, if you really like this industry and you enjoy it, like we do, like there's tons of opportunity, right? And we'd love for people to come along with us.
That's awesome. And look, let's face it. A lot of times, restaurants, whatever role in the restaurant, is a lot of times that's people's first job. It's their gateway. It's their first paycheck. Their first time that they're not at home or whatever you want to call it, in school or at home. I'm in my job, and it's in a restaurant. And to show them that there's a path from there is huge, right? Like that way there's no brain drain. You're like, hey, you're a hard worker. You enjoy this. You want to build something here. It's that's very, very smart. Very smart.
Yeah.
So I know we got to go here, but I could talk to you for hours. But I want to ask you just a couple more things. You talked about running for the mayor of Tulsa one day. Talk about that. What's the vision? Are you serious about that? And I'm sure you are. What's the inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious about it. I mean, at some point you wonder. I think I've been of the mind lately that I can have a bigger impact on the city through the private sector and the things I've been doing. But at some point, I feel like that's going to run out, right? I mean, like I can only build so much, I can only develop so much, and feel like it's still, really pushing the city forward. And I think over the past 20 years, I feel like we have. We've created more private sector jobs in the city over the past 20 years than anybody else, and so that's a big deal to me, and I think we've made the city better. But at some point, I feel like I've got to enter the public realm maybe to keep pushing that forward. And so, we just had a mayoral election last fall. The guy that got elected is great. He's younger than I am, and I think he'll do it for probably 2 terms. And so that buys me 8 years to think about it, and also allows me to hopefully get my kids through college. And that I've looked at in the past, and I just kind of the mayor in Oklahoma City is one of my best friends. We've known each other forever. We're groomsmen at each other's weddings. I've talked to him about it, and he's told me, he's like, man, you're too thin skinned. You'll hate it, right? But because of some of the stuff he's dealt with and other people I know, like I didn't want to do it while my kids are still at home. I just didn't want them to have to deal with it at school, and so I'd always kind of in my head said, well, I need to get them out of the house, right? And so my youngest will be gone in 4 years, so we'll see what it looks like in 4 years. My guess is Monroe, the guy now, will run again and win, and so that buys me another 4 years from then. And by then, who knows? Maybe I'll be in Harrisburg. Or I'll be retired somewhere, right?
Yeah, you talk yourself out of it by then.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
That's funny, but I mean, just phenomenal. And you obviously have just vision. You do look long term, which I think in this day and age, I think everyone's looking like right in front of their nose for the next 2 minutes, and you really have a good long term vision for everything. And that's a rare quality, actually, I think, anymore. So, all right, I have 100 more questions for you, but I'm only, one more question because I know you got to roll.
Again. I want us to come back on you. We'll change it up.
This is fantastic. So, the last question, and this is probably gonna be the hardest one because you own almost every restaurant in Tulsa. But if you had one final meal, what would you eat and why? And it can't be in one of your restaurants.
Oh, not one of my restaurants.
No. That's too easy, dude. Come on. What would your last meal be? It can't be one of your restaurants.
Man, if it's not one of my restaurants, hold on, because I designed one of my restaurants to like be my favorite meal, right? So
tell me that real first. But
so we built this little speakeasy steakhouse, and like my favorite meal growing up, like when it was my birthday, I wanted steak and spaghetti. Those are my two favorite things. So I just ate them together. So like, we do this incredible porterhouse, which is based off of Peter Luger's porterhouse.
Oh yeah.
And then we make this incredible spaghetti that goes with it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So I always say that one's up there. Let me think about. Hold on though. This is. I'm sure there's an answer in there somewhere.
Elliot, maybe it's something your wife makes. Just sort of, maybe,
right.
Maybe you're gonna throw something out there.
She'd call bullshit on that. She'd know. I think the things in my life that I really like, really crave. Right. I mean, they're all based around kind of memories. Right. So. Whether that be, pizza in New York, like it, or even like Balthazar, right? I mean, it's not about the food to me as much as it's about the setting sometimes. My wife and I went on our first date at Gibson's in Chicago. I go back there all the time.
Sure.
I love it, right? I love being in that room. I love all the memories I've had there with her and my kids, and like,
Mm-hmm.
so that would probably be it for me. If I was just
Cool.
like, if you told me I was going out and I had one last meal to eat, I'd probably go there because some of my best memories of my
Yeah.
life are in that room, right?
Awesome.
So is it the world's best food? Like, that's pretty damn good, right? But
Yeah.
I'm sure I could eat some Michelin star food somewhere that's better. But to me, that's and that's just how I think about our restaurants too, right? Like, we're not like going after awards, right? We're going after being the place that are people's favorites where they make their memories. And
Yeah.
that's kind of, for me too, I think how I kind of look at it.
Well, I mean, you should be very proud because I'm sure you've made many, many, many memories for people in Tulsa.
Well,
I
I
think
think so.
that's
We've ruined a few
amazing.
nights too, but hopefully less of them.
That goes with the turf.
Yeah, right.
Hey, man, I just want to tell you, I just really enjoyed this and I really appreciate your time and you were awesome. And thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks. I really had fun.
Good deal. Thanks.